Eleanor Dawson's head snapped sideways with a crack that silenced the entire diner. 79 years old, barely 90 pounds. Her body crumpled against the counter, blood streaming from her lip and eye pooling on cold tiles. Vince Harmon flexed his hand, smiling. 48 hours, old woman. Sign the deed or I'll bury you in an unmarked grave. 50 witnesses. Complete silence. Absolute terror. None of them knew her son was a Hell's Angel. None of them knew he'd disappeared 7 years ago, drowning in guilt over a death he couldn't prevent. 200 miles away, a phone buzzed. A video played, and something that had been sleeping for 7 years woke up hungry. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far justice travels. Eleanor Dawson's hands shook as she poured coffee at 4:47 a.m. Same time as always. 45 years of the same damn routine. She lifted the cup, stopped. Her eyes caught the photograph hidden behind the sugar jar. Jackson, leather jacket, that wild grin, 25 years old in that picture. 52 now, if he was still alive. "Where are you, baby?" she whispered. The coffee went cold in her hands. Rosie Martinez kicked open the diner's back door at 6:15, her daughter Maya half asleep on her shoulder. "You're early again, Mrs. D." "Couldn't sleep." "You never sleep." Rosie laid Maya on the office cot, tucked a blanket around her. "Bad dreams?" Eleanor didn't answer. She was wiping the same spot on the counter she'd wiped 6 times already. Rosie watched her. This woman had given her a job when she was 5 months pregnant, and every other business in town had slammed doors in her face. Single mother, no references, no experience. Eleanor hadn't asked a single question, just handed her an apron and said, "You start tomorrow." "He's not coming back, Mrs. D." Rosie's voice was gentle. "It's been 7 years." "I know." "Then why do you keep watching that road?" Eleanor finally looked up. Her eyes were wet. "Because that's what mothers do." By 8:30, the diner was packed. Truckers, ranchers, a few tourists photographing the vintage authenticity, like poverty was some kind of aesthetic. Eleanor moved through the chaos, refilling cups, remembering orders, calling regulars by name. Henry Castellanos grabbed her wrist as she passed his stool. "Ellie, we need to talk." "I'm busy, Henry." "Town meeting last night. Harmon's making his move." She stopped. "What kind of move?" "Final offer. Everyone on this block either sells by Friday or faces consequences." Henry lowered his voice. "The Garcia family. Someone slashed their tires, all 4 cars, same night they refused to sign." "That's illegal." "So is half of what Vince Harmon does, but he owns the sheriff, owns the mayor. Hell, he probably owns the judge too." Eleanor pulled her wrist free. "I'm not selling. Ellie, my husband built this place, brick by brick. He died before he could see our 30th anniversary, but this diner, this is his legacy. I'm not handing it to some Vegas scumbag so he can build a casino." Henry shook his head. "Frank would want you safe more than he'd want the diner standing." "Frank would want me to fight." "Frank's dead, Ellie, and if you're not careful, you will be too." 9:17 a.m. The front door exploded open. Everyone froze. Vince Harmon walked in like he'd bought the place yesterday. Expensive suit, gold watch, the kind of confidence that comes from hurting people who can't fight back. 2 men flanked him. Carl, ex-prison guard, did 3 years for assault before Harmon bailed him out. Dayton, nobody knew his story, but the scars on his knuckles told enough of it. Vince scanned the room, smiled when he found Eleanor. "Mrs. Dawson," his voice carried like a threat wrapped in silk. "Just who I wanted to see." Eleanor set down her coffee pot. "Mr. Harmon, I believe my answer was clear." "Answers change. Mine don't." He walked toward her, slow, deliberate, each step making someone flinch. He slid into the booth across from her. "Uninvited, unwelcome." "Let me paint you a picture," he said. "Phoenix Luxury Development is offering you $80,000 above market value. That's not a negotiation. That's a gift. I don't want your gift. Everyone wants money. I want to die in the place my husband built. That's worth more than anything you can offer." Vince leaned close. His breath reeked of last night's bourbon. "Your husband's been rotting in the ground for 12 years. He doesn't care about this diner. He doesn't care about anything. Because dead men don't have opinions. The room went silent. Eleanor's voice didn't waver. Get out. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Vince Harmon had broken men twice his size. He'd made mayors cry, made police chiefs beg. But this 79-year-old woman looked at him like he was nothing, and something in him snapped. He stood, adjusted his jacket, smiled that smile that made people disappear. You know, I did some digging. Interesting family you have got, Mrs. Dawson. Dead husband, no siblings, one son. Eleanor's face changed, just barely, just enough. Jackson Dawson. Vince let the name hang in the air. Ran with the Hells Angels, big bad biker, until he got a kid killed and ran away like a coward. Don't what? Tell the truth. Vince laughed. Your son let a 22-year-old boy then disappeared. No funeral, no apology, just gone. 7 years of nothing. You don't know anything about my son. I know he's not here. I know he abandoned you. I know that when I take this diner, and I will take it, there's not a damn thing anyone can do to stop me. Eleanor stood, all 5 feet of her, looking up at this monster. My son made mistakes, but he's more of a man than you'll ever be. Vince's eye twitched. What did you say? You heard me. You stupid old. Eleanor grabbed her coffee, threw it in his face. You know what? The diner gasped. Vince stumbled back, hot liquid streaming down his suit, his expression shifting from shock to pure rage. Carl, Dayton, everyone out. Now. The enforcers moved. Chairs scraped. Customers fled. In 30 seconds, the diner was empty, except for Eleanor, and Rosie hidden behind the counter phone already recording. Vince wiped coffee from his eyes. His hand was shaking. Not from pain, from fury. You just made the last mistake of your life. I've made plenty of mistakes. You're not one of them. He grabbed her wrist, twisted. She gasped, but didn't scream. Listen to me carefully, old woman. I work for people who don't lose. People who make problems disappear. Your husband's grave is in the cemetery on 5th Street right, plot 247. Eleanor's blood went cold. Beautiful headstone, Frank Dawson, beloved husband and father. Be a shame if something happened to it. Be a real shame if something happened to you headed next to it. Let go of me. Sign the papers. Never. He twisted harder. She felt something pop in her wrist. Your son's not coming. Nobody's coming. You're alone, Eleanor. Completely alone. She looked up at him. This man who thought fear was the same as power. My son has more honor in his little finger than... The slap came without warning. Her head snapped sideways. Her body left the ground. She hit the floor, hard skull, cracking against the edge of a chair. Blood everywhere. Lips split. Gash above her eye. Behind the counter, Rosie stuffed her fist in her mouth to keep from screaming. Vince stood over Eleanor, breathing hard. 48 hours. Sign the papers, or I'll make sure you are buried in an unmarked grave where even God can't find you. He grabbed the unsigned contract, crumpled. It threw it at her bleeding face. Then he straightened his tie, fixed his hair, became the businessman again. Oh, and if your coward son does show up, tell him Vince Harmon doesn't scare. Tell him I'll do to him what I did to you, only slower. The door slammed behind him. Rosie burst from behind the counter the second the engines faded. Mrs. Dawson. Oh, God. Eleanor was trying to stand. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. I'm fine. You're bleeding. Rosie's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the towel. We have to call the police. Police work for him. Then the state police, the FBI, someone... Sweetheart. Eleanor grabbed Rosie's hand, squeezed. There's no one. This town is his. The law is his. We're on our own. There has to be something. There isn't. Rosie looked at this woman, 79 years old, blood on her face, still refusing to break. What about Jackson? Eleanor closed her eyes. He's not coming. You don't know that. He hasn't called in 7 years, hasn't visited, her voice cracked. He's gone, Rosie. My son is gone. That night, Rosie sat in her car outside the diner. Maya was asleep in the back seat. The video was loaded on her phone. She'd spent 3 months tracking down this number. A friend of a biker who knew where Jackson Reaper Dawson had last been seen. A Barstow area code, probably a burner phone, probably disconnected, but maybe not. She typed 3 words, "They hurt your mother." Attached the video. Her thumb hovered over send. Mrs. Dawson had said not to, had begged her not to, but Rosie Martinez had survived too much to watch the only person who believed in her die at the hands of some rich psychopath. She pressed send. Barstow, California, 11:47 p.m. Jackson Dawson woke to his phone buzzing. He'd been dreaming about Tommy again. Same dream, every night for 7 years. The truck running the red light. The screech of metal. Tommy's body under 2 tons of twisted steel. "Help me, Reaper. Please, it hurts. It hurts so bad." He couldn't save him. Couldn't do anything but hold his hand while he bled out on the asphalt. 22 years old. Bright future. Dead because Jackson wasn't fast enough. He grabbed the phone. Unknown number. Video attachment. Probably spam. Probably nothing. He pressed play, and his world ended. His mother hit the floor, blood on her face. A man standing over her laughing. 48 hours, sign or I'll bury you next to your husband." Jackson watched it again, and again, and again. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurring. 7 years. 7 years he'd stayed away because he thought he didn't deserve her. Because he thought his guilt made him poison. Because he thought she was better off without him. And while he was hiding, someone was hurting her. He threw the phone across the room, put his fist through the wall, screamed until his throat tore, then he went outside. The Harley sat under a tarp behind the motel. 3 years since he'd touched it. 3 years since he'd ridden anything. He pulled back the tarp. The bike was exactly as he'd left it. Black paint, chrome pipes, the Hells Angels patch still on the saddlebag. He'd earned that patch through blood and brotherhood, through years of loyalty that most people would never understand, and he'd walked away from it because of Tommy, because of guilt, because he thought running would make the pain stop. It didn't. It never did. Jackson ran his hand over the gas tank, over the handlebars, over the patch that had defined him for 20 years. Then he pulled out his phone and made the call. 3 rings. "Who the hell is this, Bones? It's Reaper." Silence. 10 seconds. 20. "You've got some nerve calling this number." "I know." 7 years, Jackson. Not one word. "We thought you were dead. Your mother thought you were dead." "I know." "You abandoned your brothers, abandoned your club, abandoned that boy's mother who still cries at his grave every Sunday." "I know." "Then why are you calling?" Jackson closed his eyes. "Someone hurt my mother." The line went quiet. Heard how? Hit her, threatened her, some developer trying to steal her diner. "And what do you want from me?" "I want to come home." Bones laughed, hard and cold. "Home? You don't have a home anymore. You gave that up when you took off your patch." "I'm not asking for the patch. I'm asking for help." "Why should I help you after everything you did?" "Because it's my mother, Bones. Because she's 79 years old and bleeding in a town where the law works for the people hurting her. Because I can't do this alone." More silence. Then, "Where are you, Barstow, 4 hours out." "She's in Dusty Creek." "Yeah. We'll be there tomorrow, noon." Jackson's throat tightened. "Bones, don't. This isn't forgiveness. This is family. And nobody touches family." A pause. Not even family that ran away. The line went dead. Pum. Jackson stared at the bike for a long time. 3 years since he'd ridden. 3 years since he'd felt the wind on his face or the engine beneath him. He'd told himself he didn't deserve it, that men who let boys die shouldn't feel freedom. But his mother was bleeding, and some things were bigger than guilt. He threw his leg over the seat, turned the key. The Harley roared to life. Jackson Dawson hadn't been Reaper in 7 years. Tonight, Reaper was riding home. Eleanor sat by her window at 2 a.m., ice on her lip, bandage above her eye, watching the empty road like she'd done every night for 7 years. He wasn't coming. She knew that. Jackson had made his choice the night he left. The night he'd looked at her with those haunted eyes and said words that still destroyed her. I can't be here anymore, Ma. I can't look at you without seeing what I've become. You're my son. That's enough. No, it's not. And he'd ridden into the darkness. 7 years of silence. 7 years of unanswered prayers. Now she was dying by inches in a town that had forgotten how to fight, being circled by wolves in expensive suits. Please, Jackie, she whispered to the empty road. Just let me see your face one more time. The road stayed dark. So, 11:47 a.m. Henry Castellano stepped out of the hardware store, heard a sound, low, distant, thunder. He looked up. One motorcycle crested the hill, then 10, then 30. They came in formation, chrome blazing in the Arizona sun, engines shaking the ground. At the front rode a man in black leather gray in his beard and eyes locked forward like he could see through walls. The Hells Angels rolled into Dusty Creek like an army coming home from war. Henry dropped his coffee. Sweet Jesus. Eleanor was wiping tables when she heard the engines. Her heart stopped. She knew that sound, knew it in her bones, in her blood, in every cell of her body. Mrs. Dawson. Rosie's voice was trembling. There's a lot of motorcycles outside. Eleanor was already moving. She pushed through the door, stepped into the light, and there he was, Jackson Dawson, her Jackie, standing in the middle of Main Street, leather jacket, gray beard, 7 years of silence between them. He looked older, broken, tired in ways sleep couldn't fix, but he was here. Ma. His voice cracked on the word. Eleanor walked toward him, past the motorcycles, past the bikers who parted like she was made of something holy. She stopped in front of her son and slapped him across the face. 30 Hells Angels went dead silent. 7 years, Eleanor's voice shook with fury and love. 7 years without a word. I thought you were dead. I prayed over your picture every night. Jackson didn't move, didn't defend himself. I'm sorry, Ma. Sorry. She hit his chest again. I wrote letters you never answered, left voicemails you never returned. I beg God to bring you back. I know. You know nothing. She was crying now, 50 years of pain pouring out. You left me alone after your father died. After everything. You just left. I know. Then why, Jackson? Why did you stay away? He looked at her, this woman who had given him everything, who had loved him when he was unlovable, who had never stopped believing in him even when he'd stopped believing in himself. Because I got Tommy killed. Because every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a murderer. Because I thought you'd be better off without me. Better off? Eleanor grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. I lost your father to a mining accident. I almost lost you to that motorcycle life, and then I lost you anyway because you decided my love wasn't enough to stay for. Ma, I don't care what you did. I don't care who you think you are. You're my son, and I have never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second, not for one breath. Jackson broke. He fell to his knees in the middle of Main Street, wrapped his arms around his mother, and sobbed like a child. And Eleanor held him, just held him, while 30 Hells Angels stood guard around them. Bones watched from his bike. He'd been furious at Jackson for 7 years, furious at the abandonment, the silence, the cowardice. But watching Reaper, the hardest man he'd ever known, break down in his mother's arms, something shifted in his chest. Nobody touches her, he said to the man beside him. Nobody threatens her. Nobody even looks at her wrong. And if they do, Bones smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then they find out why we're called angels. Inside the diner, Eleanor sat Jackson in the booth by the window. Same booth where Vince Harmon had threatened her life 20 hours ago. She put coffee in front of him, watched his hands shake as he lifted the cup. Tell me everything, she said. Ma, everything. So he did. Tommy, the truck, the blood, holding a dying boy's hand while he begged for his mother. The funeral, Tommy's mother spitting in his face. You were supposed to protect him. Taking off the patch, riding until the gas ran out, working anonymous jobs in anonymous towns, drinking himself to sleep every night. I thought if I stayed away, you'd forget about me. You wouldn't have to explain why your son was a failure, a coward, a killer. Eleanor listened to every word. Then she reached across the table. Tommy's death wasn't your fault. I was his captain. You were his leader, not God. You can't control drunk drivers. You can't control fate. She squeezed his hands. But you could have controlled whether you stayed or ran, and you ran. I know. Running doesn't kill guilt, Jackson. It feeds it, turns it into a monster that eats you alive. I know. So stop running. Her voice hardened. You're here now. That's what matters. You face whatever comes. You don't leave again. Not ever. Jackson looked at his mother. 79 years old, blood still crusted above her eye, and stronger than anyone he'd ever known. I won't leave, I promise. Good. She stood up. Because we've got company. The front door opened. Bones walked in. 3 angels behind him. They filled the diner with leather and scars and the kind of presence that made ordinary men want to disappear. Bones looked at Eleanor. You must be the mother. And you must be Bones. She didn't flinch, didn't back down. Jackson says you're the closest thing he has to a brother. He said the same about you. Said you were the toughest woman he ever knew. Eleanor smiled. Sit down. Coffee's on me. And just like that, the Hells Angels became regulars at Sunrise Diner. Word spread boss fast. By 2 p.m., half the town had driven past the diner to see if the rumors were true. They were. 30 Hells Angels eating pancakes, playing with Rosie's daughter, tipping 50%. Henry Castellano sat at the counter shaking his head. Never thought I'd see this. Hells Angels in Dusty Creek. Times change, Eleanor said. Vince Harmon's gonna lose his mind. Good. Henry looked at her. Ellie, what exactly are you planning? Eleanor's eyes drifted to her son. Jackson sat with Bones talking low. Planning something. I'm done being afraid, Henry. Done letting men like Harmon take whatever they want. And if it goes wrong, she smiled. The same smile she'd given Frank on their wedding day. Then at least I'll go down swinging. 4:30 p.m. A black SUV pulled up outside Sunrise Diner. Vince Harmon stepped out. He saw the motorcycles, the leather jackets, the Hells Angels patches. And for the first time in his miserable life, Vince Harmon felt exactly what he'd made countless others feel. Pure, bone-deep fear. Vince Harmon stood frozen beside his SUV for exactly 11 seconds. Long enough for every biker in the parking lot to notice. Long enough for the fear to show on his face before he could hide it. Carl stepped out from the passenger side. Boss, maybe we should come back later. Vince's jaw tightened. He straightened his tie, fixed his expression into something that looked almost like confidence. I don't run from anybody. There's 30 of them. I don't care if there's 300. Vince started walking toward the diner. This is my town. But his hands were shaking and everyone could see it. Inside the diner, Bones set down his coffee cup. We've got company. Jackson turned toward the window. Watched Vince Harmon walking across the parking lot like a man trying to convince himself he wasn't terrified. That's him. That's him. Eleanor's voice was steady, but her hands gripped the edge of the counter. Vince Harmon, the man who thinks he owns everything. Jackson stood up slowly. Stay here, Ma. Jackson. Stay here. He walked toward the door. Bones followed. Then 3 more angels. Then 5 more. By the time Vince Harmon reached the entrance, 12 Hells Angels were standing between him and the diner. Vince stopped, looked at the wall of leather and muscle blocking his path. Gentlemen, he forced a smile. Didn't know we had tourists in town. Nobody smiled back. Jackson stepped forward. You Vince Harmon. Who's asking is the son of the woman you hit yesterday? The color drained from Vince's face. Just for a second. Just enough for Jackson to see. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Jackson pulled out his phone, pressed play on the video, turned it around so Vince could see himself slapping a 79-year-old woman to the ground. 48 hours, Jackson quoted. Sign or I'll bury you next to your husband. That's what you said, right? Vince's eyes darted to Carl, to Dayton, back to the wall of bikers. That video is taken out of context. Context, Jackson laughed. Cold. Empty. You hit my mother. You threatened to kill her. What context am I missing? Look, whatever she told you. She didn't tell me anything. She didn't have to. I saw it with my own eyes. Jackson stepped closer. Close enough that Vince could smell the road on him. The leather, the gasoline. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my mother alone. You're going to leave this diner alone. You're going to forget you ever heard the name Eleanor Dawson. Or what? Jackson smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Vince had ever seen. Or I'll show you what happens when you hurt someone a Hell's Angel loves. Vince swallowed hard. His voice came out weaker than he wanted. You can't threaten me. I have lawyers. I have connections. You have nothing. Bones stepped forward now. You have money. You have hired muscle. But right now you're standing in front of 30 men who would die for that old lady in there. How many of your boys would die for you? Vince looked at Carl looked away. That told him everything he needed to know. This isn't over, Vince said, backing toward his SUV. You think you can come into my town and your town? Jackson cut him off. My mother's been here 45 years. She buried her husband here, raised her son here. This was never your town, Harmon. You just convinced yourself it was. Vince climbed into the SUV, slammed the door. The engine roared to life. He rolled down the window one last time. You'll regret this, all of you. Maybe? Jackson's voice was ice. But not as much as you'll regret touching my mother. The SUV peeled out of the parking lot, kicking up dust and gravel. Jackson watched it disappear. That was too easy, Bones said quietly. I know. He'll be back with more men, more lawyers, more problems. I know. Bones put a hand on Jackson's shoulder. What's your play, brother? Jackson turned back toward the diner. Through the window, he could see his mother watching him. Her eyes filled with something he hadn't seen in 7 years. Hope. I'm going to finish what I should have finished a long time ago. Eleanor was waiting when Jackson walked back inside. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. He's dangerous, Jackson. He has powerful friends. So do I. She touched his arm, felt the tension in his muscles, the barely contained rage. I don't want you going back to prison. I'm not going to prison. Promise me. Jackson looked at his mother, at the bruise still visible above her eye, at the cut on her lip that was just starting to heal. I promise I won't do anything stupid, but I'm not making any promises about him. Rosie appeared from the back, Maya on her hip. Mrs. Dawson, there are more bikes coming. Everyone turned toward the window. Mom, over the hill, dust clouds rose. Engines rumbled like approaching thunder. 1 bike became 5. 5 became 15. 15 became 30. Bones walked to the door, squinting against the setting sun. Well, I'll be damned. Who is it? Jackson asked. Phoenix chapter, Tucson chapter. Looks like... Bones paused, counting. At least 60 more brothers. Jackson stared. You called them? I called a few. Word spreads. Bones turned back, a rare smile on his weathered face. Nobody touches family, remember. And brother, your mama just became family to every angel in the Southwest. Within an hour, Main Street looked like a motorcycle convention. 93 Hells Angels filled the parking lots, the side streets, the empty lots around the diner. They came from Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, Albuquerque. Some drove through the night. Some left jobs without explanation. Some kissed their wives goodbye and said they'd be back when the job was done. Word had spread like wildfire through the biker network. Eleanor Dawson, 79 years old, beaten by a thug who thought he owned the world. Her son was Reaper, the legendary road captain who disappeared 7 years ago. And he was back. That was enough. That was more than enough. Eleanor stood on the diner steps watching these rough men transform her parking lot into a sea of chrome and leather. I don't understand, she said quietly to Jackson. They don't even know me. They know what matters. Jackson's voice was thick. They know you raised a brother. They know you stood your ground when everyone else ran. That's enough for them. But I didn't do anything special. Ma, Jackson took her hands. You refused to break. You looked a monster in the eye and told him no. That's the most special thing in the world. An older biker approached, 60 years old, gray beard down to his chest, arms covered in faded tattoos. Mrs. Dawson. His voice was surprisingly gentle. I'm Grizz, Phoenix chapter. Hello, Grizz. Ma'am, I rode 8 hours to get here, didn't stop except for gas. He removed his sunglasses, revealing kind eyes. My own mother passed 3 years ago. Sweetest woman who ever lived. Someone hurt her, I would have burned the world down. Eleanor didn't know what to say. What I'm trying to tell you, ma'am, is that you've got 90 brothers now, and we don't leave family behind. Tears rolled down Eleanor's cheeks. She stepped forward and hugged this stranger, this rough, tattooed stranger who'd driven through the night for a woman he'd never met. Thank you, she whispered. Grizz patted her back awkwardly. No thanks needed, ma'am. This is what we do. By nightfall, the diner had been transformed. Bikers took shifts standing guard outside. Others helped Rosie serve food to the growing crowd. Some fixed broken equipment Eleanor hadn't been able to afford to repair in years. Henry Castellano sat at his usual stool watching in amazement. In 60 years, I've never seen anything like this. Neither have I, Eleanor refilled his coffee. And I've seen a lot. Vince Harmon must be losing his mind right now. Good, Henry lowered his voice. Ellie, you know this isn't over, right? Harmon's got connections all the way to Phoenix. Hell, some say he's got friends in the state capitol. Let him have his friends. I've got mon man. These friends might not be enough. Eleanor looked around the diner, at the bikers laughing and eating, at her son talking strategy with Bones, at Rosie smiling for the first time in months. Henry, for 45 years I've served this town. Served people who never once stood up for me, who watched Vince Harmon walk all over everyone and never said a word. She met his eyes. These men drove hundreds of miles for a stranger. They left their families, their jobs, their lives. For me. She set down the coffee pot. So yes, maybe it's not enough. Maybe Vince Harmon wins in the end, but at least I'll know what real loyalty looks like before I go. At 10 p.m., Jackson found his mother alone in the back office. She was holding an old photograph. Him at 18, graduation day, before the leather, before the tattoos, before everything went wrong. You were so young, she said without looking up. I was stupid. You were finding yourself. That's not stupid. That's human. Jackson sat across from her. The same chair he'd sat in as a boy, listening to his father talk about hard work and integrity and never backing down from what's right. Ma, I need to ask you something. Anything. Why didn't you sell? You could have taken the money, moved somewhere safe, started over. Eleanor set down the photograph. Your father proposed to me in this diner. Did you know that? No. We were 22, broke, scared. He got down on one knee right there by the jukebox and asked me to build a life with him. Her eyes grew distant. We poured everything into this place, every penny, every dream, every hope we had for the future. She looked at her son. When your father died, I wanted to die too. I wanted to sell everything and disappear. But then I realized this diner isn't just a building. It's not just a business. It's him. It's every memory I have of him. Every laugh, every fight, every quiet morning drinking coffee together before the customers arrived. Her voice broke. If I sell this diner, I lose the last piece of Frank I have left. And I won't do that. Not for Vince Harmon, not for anyone. Jackson reached across and took her hand. I wish I'd been here, Ma, when Dad died, when you needed me. You were dealing with your own demons. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. She squeezed his hand. But you're here now. That's what matters. I'm going to fix this. I promise. I know you will. She smiled. You're your father's son. Outside engines roared to life. Jackson and Eleanor rushed to the front of the diner. A convoy of black SUVs was approaching from the east. 4 vehicles, moving fast. Bones was already barking orders. Everyone up. We've got incoming. Bikers scrambled to their feet, formed a line in front of the diner. Nearly 100 men standing shoulder to shoulder. The SUV stopped 50 feet away. Doors open. Vince Harmon stepped out first. Behind him, at least 20 men in tactical gear. Private security, the kind of men who'd done tours in Iraq and Afghanistan before discovering that violence paid better in the private sector. Vince walked forward, flanked by 4 of his biggest enforcers. Impressive, he called out. You've got yourself an army. So do you. Jackson stepped forward to meet him, but mine doesn't get paid by the hour. You think this is funny? I think you're scared. I think you came here with your rented soldiers because you can't handle this yourself. Vince's eye twitched. I came to make one final offer. We're not interested. You haven't heard it yet. Don't need to. Vince raised his voice so everyone could hear. $200,000, cash, tonight. Eleanor Dawson signs the papers, and this all goes away. No more threats, no more problems. 200,000 and everyone goes home happy. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. That was a lot of money. Eleanor pushed through the line of bikers before anyone could stop her. Mrs. Dawson. Bones tried to grab her arm. She shook him off and walked right up to Vince Harmon. 200,000. That's right, Vince smiled. More money than you've ever seen. Enough to retire somewhere nice. Florida, Arizona, anywhere you want. Eleanor nodded slowly. That's a generous offer. I'm a generous man. You're a man who hit a 79-year-old woman in the face and threatened to bury her in an unmarked grave. The smile faded from Vince's lips. You think money erases that? Eleanor's voice carried across the parking lot. You think I care about money? My husband died in a mining accident because his company cut safety costs to save a few dollars. I've seen what men like you do, how you buy and sell people like they're nothing. She stepped closer. I've lived in this town for 45 years. I've served thousands of meals, listened to thousands of stories. I've watched children grow up and have children of their own. This diner isn't just a building to me, Mr. Harmon. It's my life. And you can't buy someone's life. Not for 200,000. Not for 2 million. Not for all the money in the world. She turned her back on him. Now get off my property. Vince's face went red, then purple. You stupid old... Jackson was there in an instant, his hand around Vince's throat before anyone could react. Finish that sentence, Jackson whispered. Please. Vince's security moved forward. So did the bikers. For 10 seconds, the world balanced on the edge of a knife. Then Bones stepped between the groups. Everyone stand down. Now. The bikers held. The security team hesitated. Bones looked at Vince's men. Gentlemen, I'm going to give you some advice. Free of charge. You're getting paid, what, 500 a day, 1,000, whatever it is, it's not enough to die for. He gestured at the bikers behind him. We're not getting paid at all. We're here because that woman in there is family, and we don't have a price. So you need to ask yourselves a question. How much is Vince Harmon's real estate deal worth to you? Because I promise you, the moment this goes sideways, we're not going to stop until every single one of you is in the ground. The security team exchanged looks. Their leader, a burly man with a military buzz cut, stepped forward. We were hired for security, not war. Smart man. The leader turned to Vince. We're done here. What you can't. Contract says protection, Mr. Harmon, not suicide missions. He signaled to his men. Pack it up. We're leaving. Vince watched in disbelief as his 20 hired soldiers climbed back into their vehicles and drove away, leaving him alone with Carl and Dayton against 93 Hells Angels. Jackson released his grip on Vince's throat. Looks like your army just quit. Vince stumbled backward. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. This isn't over. You keep saying that. I have lawyers. I have judges. You have nothing. Jackson's voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. You had money and fear. That's all you ever had, and now everyone knows it. Vince backed toward his SUV. Carl and Dayton were already inside, engine running. I'll destroy you, all of you. Goodbye, Vince. The SUV peeled away into the darkness, and for the first time in months, Dusty Creek was quiet. But Jackson knew it wasn't over. Men like Vince Harmon didn't give up. They didn't accept defeat. They schemed and plotted and waited for the perfect moment to strike. This was just the beginning. At midnight, Jackson sat alone on the diner's roof. Below him, bikers slept in tents and on bedrolls. A few stood guard, cigarettes glowing in the darkness. Bones climbed up the ladder and sat beside him. Can't sleep. Never could, not since Tommy. They sat in silence for a while. You know he forgave you, Bones said finally. Tommy, before he died. Jackson's jaw tightened. Don't. He told me Reaper, the week before that run. Said if anything ever happened to him, we shouldn't blame you. Said you were the best captain he'd ever ridden with. He was 22 years old, and he knew the risks. We all do. He shouldn't have been on that run. I should have left him behind. You couldn't have known. I should have known. Jackson's voice cracked. That's what captains do. They protect their men. They make the hard calls. They're human. Bones cut him off. They make mistakes. They live with those mistakes, but they don't run from them. Jackson was quiet for a long time. I've been running for 7 years. I know. I don't know how to stop. Bones looked at him. This man he'd ridden with for 20 years. This brother who'd saved his life more times than he could count. You stop by staying, by facing what scares you, by being there for the people who need you. He nodded toward the diner below. That woman in there has needed you for 7 years. She never stopped hoping you'd come back, never stopped praying for you. I know. So stop running. Be her son again, not the ghost of who you used to be. Jackson wiped his eyes, rough, angry at himself for the tears. What if I can't? Then fake it until you can. Bones stood up. That's what the rest of us do. He started toward the ladder, then stopped. One more thing. Tommy's mother, she's still in Flagstaff, still goes to his grave every Sunday. Jackson's whole body went rigid. She's never blamed you. Not once. She blames the drunk driver who ran that red light. She's been waiting 7 years for you to come talk to her, to tell her about his last ride, about the man he'd become. I can't. You can and you will, after this is done. Bones disappeared down the ladder. Jackson sat alone under the stars thinking about all the people he'd failed. His mother, Tommy, Tommy's mother, himself. But maybe it wasn't too late to make things right. At 3 a.m., Eleanor woke to the sound of breaking glass. She sat up in bed, heart pounding. More sounds, outside, behind the diner. She grabbed her robe and rushed to the window. Flames, the storage shed behind the diner, was on fire. Jackson, she screamed. Jackson! Within seconds, the entire camp was awake. Bikers rushed toward the flames with fire extinguishers, buckets of water, anything they could find. Jackson burst through the back door. Ma, get back inside. The shed, your father's tools, his workbench? I know, stay here. He ran toward the fire. The shed was fully engulfed now. 40 years of memories, Frank Dawson's tools, his first workbench, the chair he'd made for Eleanor on their 10th anniversary. All of it burning. Grizz appeared beside Jackson. We can't save it. I know. Arson had to be. Harmon. He's sending a message. Jackson watched the flames consume everything his father had built, everything his mother had saved for 40 years, and something inside him went cold. He wants a message. Jackson's voice was barely human. I'll give him a message. Reaper. Get me his address. That's not how we handle things. Get me his address, now. Grizz grabbed his arm. Brother, if you go after him tonight, everything we've built here falls apart. The law comes down on us. Your mother loses the diner anyway. Is that what you want? Jackson's chest heaved. His fists clenched so hard his knuckles went white. He's hurting her, over and over, and I can't stop it. We will stop it, but not like this. Grizz's voice was calm, steady. We do this right or we don't do it at all. That's the code. Jackson looked back at the diner. His mother stood in the doorway watching 40 years of memories burn, and she wasn't crying. She was standing tall, back straight, head high, refusing to break. Jackson took a breath, then another. Okay, we do this right. Good, now help me put out this fire. By dawn, the shed was nothing but ashes. Eleanor stood before the smoking ruins, Jackson beside her. I'm sorry, Ma, Dad's tools. They're just things, Jackson. Her voice was surprisingly steady. Things can be replaced. People can't. But his workbench, he built that workbench with his hands. Those hands are gone now, have been for 12 years. She turned to look at her son. But you're here, you came back. That's worth more than any workbench. Jackson couldn't speak. The lump in his throat was too large. Vince Harmon wants me to give up, Eleanor continued. He wants me scared. He wants me running. That's how men like him win, by making people believe they have no choice. She reached up and touched her son's face. I spent 7 years waiting for you, praying for you, refusing to believe you were gone forever. If I can survive that, I can survive a burned shed. Ma, we're going to beat him, Jackson. Not with fists, not with fire. We're going to beat him by refusing to give up, by standing our ground, by showing this town that good people can still win. She smiled. That's what your father would have wanted. That's what I want. And if you're truly his son, that's what you want too. Jackson pulled his mother into his arms. I'm his son, he whispered, and I'm yours, and I'm not going anywhere. Behind them, 93 Hells Angels stood watching, and every single one of them knew that Vince Harmon had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The sun rose over Dusty Creek like it was apologizing for the night before. Smoke still drifted from the ruins of the shed. The smell of burned wood and melted metal hung in the air, but Eleanor was already inside the diner brewing coffee like nothing had happened. Jackson watched her from the doorway. You should rest, Ma. Rest is for people who've given up. She didn't look at him, just kept measuring grounds into the filter. I've got a diner to run. And the shed is gone. Standing around crying about it won't bring it back. Jackson walked over and took the coffee scoop from her hands. Ma, stop. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were red, tired, but there was no defeat in them. I cried last night, she said quietly, after everyone went to sleep. I cried until I couldn't breathe. Your father's things. 40 years of memories gone in an hour. I know. But then I remembered something Frank told me the night before he died. He said, Ellie, the things we own don't matter. The people we love do. Everything else is just stuff. She took back the scoop and continued making coffee. Vince Harmon burned stuff. He didn't burn me. He didn't burn you. He didn't burn what matters. Jackson didn't have words. His mother had always been strong, but this was something else. This was steel forged in fire. Now help me open this diner. We've got 90 hungry bikers out there. By 8 a.m. Sunrise Diner was packed. Bikers filled every booth, every stool, every inch of standing room. They ate pancakes and eggs and bacon like men who hadn't seen food in weeks. And they paid. Every single one of them. Rosie moved through the chaos with Maya on her hip, taking orders, refilling coffee, somehow managing to smile despite the exhaustion. Mrs. D were running low on eggs. I called the supplier. They're sending extra. And bacon. Oh, that too. Rosie paused. How are you paying for all this? Eleanor smiled. I'm not. The Phoenix chapter is. What? Grizz came to me this morning, said the club's covering all food costs until this is over. Every penny. Rosie's eyes filled with tears. These people. I know, sweetheart. I know. At 9:30, Henry Castellanos burst through the front door. Ellie, you need to see this. Everyone turned. Henry was out of breath, waving his phone. Town meeting, emergency session, starts in an hour. About what? About you, about them. He gestured at the bikers. Vince Harmon filed a complaint. Says you're harboring a criminal gang. Says the bikers are intimidating local businesses. Bones stood up from his booth. Criminal gang. That's what he's calling you. We haven't broken a single law. Doesn't matter. He's got the mayor in his pocket and half the council. Jackson walked over. What happens at this meeting? They vote. If it passes, they can declare you a public nuisance, force you to disperse. Henry looked at Eleanor. And if the bikers leave? He didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what would happen if the protection disappeared. Eleanor untied her apron. Then I better be at that meeting. Ma, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She looked at her son. I've been hiding in this diner for 45 years, Jackson. Letting other people fight my battles. Letting other people decide my future. She straightened her shoulders. Not anymore. The town hall was standing room only. Every resident of Dusty Creek had shown up. Farmers, shop owners, teachers, mechanics. People who'd never attended a council meeting in their lives were crammed into the small building. And at the front, behind a long table, sat the 5 council members. Mayor Tom Bradley, 62, owned half the commercial property in town, had taken money from Vince Harmon for 3 years running. Councilwoman Sarah Chen, 55, former teacher, The only member who'd voted against selling public land to Phoenix Luxury, Councilman Robert Hayes, 48, insurance agent, owed Vince Harmon $50,000 in gambling debts. Councilwoman Patricia Wells, 60, retired nurse, scared of her own shadow. And Councilman David Ruiz, 35, youngest member. Ran on a platform of transparency and ethics. Nobody knew which way he'd vote. Vince Harmon sat in the front row, flanked by two lawyers in expensive suits. Eleanor walked in with Jackson on one side and Bones on the other. The room went silent. She made her way to the front, passing neighbors who wouldn't meet her eyes. People she'd served breakfast to for decades. People who'd celebrated birthdays and anniversaries in her diner. None of them spoke. She took a seat in the front row directly across from Vince Harmon. He smiled at her. That same cold reptilian smile. "Mrs. Dawson, glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it." Mayor Bradley banged his gavel. "This emergency session is now in order. We're here to address concerns raised by Mr. Vincent Harmon regarding a potential public safety threat." He nodded at Vince, who stood and approached the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen of the council, residents of Dusty Creek." Vince's voice was smooth as oil. 3 days ago, nearly 100 members of the Hells Angels motorcycle gang descended on our peaceful town. They've occupied public streets, intimidated local businesses, created an atmosphere of fear and lawlessness. Murmurs from the crowd. "I have documentation of traffic violations, noise complaints, and threatening behavior. I have witnesses who will testify that these gang members have harassed citizens simply trying to go about their daily lives." He pulled out a folder thick with papers. "This is not about Mrs. Eleanor Dawson, who I'm sure is a lovely woman. This is about public safety, about protecting our communities from criminal elements who have no business being here." He set the folder on the council table. "I'm asking this council to declare the Hells Angels' presence a public nuisance and order them to disperse immediately. If they refuse, I'm asking for authorization to bring in state police to remove them by force." He returned to his seat, looking satisfied. Mayor Bradley cleared his throat. "Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition?" Eleanor stood. "I do." The room shifted. People craned their necks to see. Eleanor walked to the podium. She was small, frail. Her voice barely carried beyond the first few rows. But when she spoke, everyone listened. "My name is Eleanor Dawson. Most of you know me. I've been running Sunrise Diner for 45 years. I've served coffee to your parents, your children, your grandchildren. I've been part of this community longer than many of you have been alive." She paused. 3 days ago, Mr. Harmon came into my diner and offered to buy my property. I refused, so he hit me. Gasps from the crowd. He slapped me across the face so hard I fell to the floor. Then he threatened to kill me if I didn't sign his papers. "That's a lie." Vince was on his feet. I have video." The room went dead silent. Eleanor pulled out her phone, best showing. "My waitress recorded the entire thing. The slap, the threats, everything." She looked at the council. "I can play it right now if you'd like." Mayor Bradley's face went pale. "That won't be necessary." "I think it is." Watch Sarah Chen lean forward. "If there's evidence of assault, we need to see it." "This is not relevant to the matter at hand," Vince's lawyer interjected. "We're discussing public safety, not. A man who beats elderly women in public is absolutely relevant to public safety." Sarah's voice was ice. "Play the video, Mrs. Dawson." Eleanor connected her phone to the room's display system. And for the next 90 seconds, the entire town of Dusty Creek watched Vince Harmon slap a 79-year-old woman to the ground. They heard his threats, saw him grab her wrist, watched him laugh as she bled on the floor. By the time it ended, half the room was crying. The other half was staring at Vince Harmon with murder in their eyes. "That video is doctored," Vince sputtered. "It's taken out of context. It's—" "Mr. Harmon," Sarah Chen's voice cut through his protest. "I've known Eleanor Dawson for 30 years. She's the most honest person I've ever met. Are you really going to sit there and call her a liar?" "I'm saying, because if you are, I have a few questions about the $50,000 you donated to Mayor Bradley's re-election campaign, and the property deals you've made with Councilman Hayes, and the threats you've made to every business owner on Main Street who refused to sell." The room exploded. People were on their feet shouting, some at Vince, some at the council, some just releasing years of pent-up frustration. Mayor Bradley banged his gavel frantically. Order, order. Nobody listened. Jackson watched the chaos with growing concern. This was spiraling out of control. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. Sheriff Dale Combs was walking toward the front of the room, hand on his holster, and he was looking directly at Eleanor. Jackson moved. He pushed through the crowd, reaching his mother just as Sheriff Combs arrived. Mrs. Dawson, the sheriff's voice was flat, official. I need you to come with me. On what charge? Filing a false police report, inciting public unrest, harboring known criminals. You can't be serious. I'm dead serious. Combs reached for his handcuffs. You're under arrest. No, Jackson stepped between them. You touch her, and I swear to God, you threatening an officer. Combs' hand moved to his weapon. Because that's another charge I can add. The room had gone quiet, everyone watching. This was it, the moment Vince had been waiting for. Get Eleanor arrested. Get Jackson arrested. Remove the threat legally, cleanly, with the full backing of the law. Bones appeared at Jackson's side. Then Grizz. Then a dozen more angels. Sheriff Combs's confidence wavered. His hand trembled on his gun. Stand down, Combs ordered. All of you. Or what? Bones's voice was calm, deadly calm. You going to shoot 100 people in front of the whole town. I'll call for backup. Call whoever you want. By the time they get here, this'll be over. The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours. Then a voice cut through the tension. Dale? Everyone turned. An old woman was pushing through the crowd. 80 years old if she was a day. White hair, weathered face, eyes that had seen everything. Mrs. Combs, the sheriff's voice cracked. Mom, what are you doing here? I'm doing what I should have done years ago. She walked right up to her son, looked him in the eye. I didn't raise you to be a bully's lapdog. Mom, your father was a good man, an honest man. He wore that badge for 30 years and never once took a bribe. Never once looked the other way when someone was being hurt. Her voice broke. And now you're going to arrest Eleanor Dawson, a woman who brought me soup every day for 3 months when I had pneumonia, who sat with me at your father's funeral when you were too busy working. I'm just doing my job. Your job is to protect people, not persecute them. She grabbed his arm. Dale, look at me. Really look at me. Is this who you want to be? Is this what you want your legacy to be? Sheriff Combs stood frozen. His hand slowly dropped from his weapon. The entire room held its breath. His voice was barely a whisper. I don't know how to stop. You stop by choosing right here, right now. His mother's eyes were fierce. You choose who you're going to be, your father's son or Vince Harmon's puppet. Something broke in Dale Combs' face. 7 years of corruption. 7 years of looking the other way. 7 years of slowly losing his soul, one compromise at a time. And his mother standing in front of him, giving him one last chance. He turned to Eleanor. Mrs. Dawson, He couldn't finish. It's okay, Dale. Eleanor's voice was gentle. I knew your father. He was a good man. And somewhere in there, you are too. Combs looked at Vince Harmon. Vince's face was purple with rage. Dale, do your job. Arrest her now. The sheriff straightened his spine. For the first time in years, he looked like a man instead of a shadow. Mr. Harmon, based on the video evidence presented today, I'm placing you under arrest for assault and battery. What? You have the right to remain silent. You can't do this. I own you. I own this whole. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. 2 deputies moved forward, uncertainty on their faces. Do it, Combs ordered. Cuff him. Vince struggled as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. You're finished, Dale. All of you. I have lawyers. I have connections. I'll destroy every single... Get him out of here. The deputies dragged Vince Harmon out of the town hall. His screams echoed through the building, getting fainter and fainter until they disappeared entirely. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. 1 person, then 2, then 10, then the entire room. Eleanor stood at the podium, tears streaming down her face as the town of Dusty Creek rose to its feet and cheered. Jackson appeared beside her, took her hand. You did it, Ma. We did it. No, he shook his head. That was all you. Sheriff Combs approached them, hat in his hands. Mrs. Dawson, I don't know how to apologize for what I've done. The things I've let happen in this town. You don't need to apologize to me, Dale. Eleanor touched his arm. You need to apologize to yourself, and then you need to start making it right. I don't know if I can. You already did. The hardest part is choosing to change. Everything else is just work. Combs nodded slowly. My mother, she's right. My father would be ashamed of me. Then make him proud, starting now. The meeting officially dissolved into chaos after that. Council members scrambling to distance themselves from Vince Harmon, residents demanding investigations, reporters who'd somehow gotten wind of the story pushing through the crowd. Jackson pulled his mother outside, away from the noise. We need to talk about what happens next. What do you mean? Harmon's arrested, but he'll make bail. His lawyers will get him out by tonight. And when he does, Eleanor nodded, he'll be angrier than ever. He's got nothing left to lose, Ma. Men like that are dangerous. So what do we do? Jackson looked at the bikers gathering in the parking lot, at Bones coordinating with the chapter presidents, at the small army that had formed around one old woman's refusal to give up. We finish this. Tonight. By 6 p.m., Vince Harmon was out on bail. His lawyers had worked miracles. Reduced charges, sympathetic judge. $100,000 and he walked out of the county jail like nothing had happened. But something had happened. The video had gone viral, millions of views, national news coverage. Elderly widow stands up to corrupt developer was trending on every platform. And the comments were brutal. People calling for boycotts of Phoenix luxury, investors pulling out, business partners distancing themselves. In 3 hours, Vince Harmon's empire had started to crumble. He sat in his hotel room, watching his life fall apart on a laptop screen. Carl stood by the door. Boss, maybe we should get out of town, regroup somewhere. I'm not running. Sir, there are 90 bikers out there who want you dead. The sheriff turned on you. The whole town. I said I'm not running. Vince swept the laptop off the desk. It shattered against the wall. That old woman, that worthless, stubborn old woman, she ruined everything. Maybe if we just, no more maybes, no more deals, no more playing nice. Vince's eyes were wild, desperate. I want her gone, her son gone, that whole diner burned to the ground. Sir, with all due respect, that's suicide. The bikers. Then we need more men. Call everyone, every contact, every favor we're owed. I want 50 guys here by midnight. Boss, do it. Carl pulled out his phone, but his hands were shaking. He'd seen Vince angry before. He'd seen him violent. But he'd never seen him like this. This was a man with nothing left to lose, and those were the most dangerous kind. At 9 p.m., Jackson gathered the chapter presidents in the diner's back office. Bones, Grizz, Demon from the Tucson chapter, Razor from Albuquerque. 8 men who'd earned their patches through blood and loyalty. Harmon's planning something, Jackson said. I can feel it. Let him plan. Razor cracked his knuckles. We've got 100 men. He's desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. So what's the play? Jackson looked at each man in turn. We end this tonight. Not with fists, not with fire. We end it by exposing everything he's done. How? Rosie's been doing some digging. Harmon's got files, records, everything from bribery payments to forged documents. It's all stored at his office in Phoenix. Grizz leaned forward. You want us to steal them? I want us to make sure the right people see them. FBI, State Attorney General, news networks, everything. That's not exactly legal. Neither is beating old women and burning their property. Silence around the table. Bones spoke first. I'm in. Me too. Grizz, one by one they all nodded. Good. Jackson pulled out a map. Here's what we're going to do. At 11:47 p.m., 2 things happened simultaneously. In Phoenix, a team of bikers walked into the offices of Phoenix Luxury Development. They didn't break anything, didn't hurt anyone. They simply downloaded every file on every computer and walked out before security even knew they were there. And in Dusty Creek, Vince Harmon's convoy arrived. 12 vehicles, 53 men, armed with bats chains and at least a dozen firearms. They parked on the edge of town, engines idling. Vince stepped out of the lead SUV. He looked at Main Street, at the rows of motorcycles, at the bikers standing guard outside the diner. "Burn it all," he said. "Every last inch of it." His men moved forward, and the night exploded. It wasn't a fight, it was a war. Bikers poured out of every building, every alley, every shadow. They met Harmon's men in the middle of Main Street. The sound was deafening. Fists on flesh, metal on metal, screaming and cursing, and the roar of engines. Jackson fought like a man possessed, every punch carrying 7 years of guilt, every blow landing with the weight of everything he'd failed to protect. He found Carl in the chaos, the man who had stood by while Vince hit his mother. "Remember me?" Carl swung. Jackson ducked, countered with an uppercut that lifted Carl off his feet. "That's for my mother." He hit him again and again. "That's for everyone you've ever hurt." Carl crumpled to the ground unconscious. Jackson moved on. Bones was surrounded by 3 of Harmon's men. Jackson broke through, taking one down with a tackle, another with an elbow to the jaw. "Thanks, brother." "Don't mention it." They fought back to back, just like the old days, before Tommy, before everything fell apart. And despite the chaos, despite the violence, Jackson felt something he hadn't felt in 7 years: home. In the middle of the battle, Vince Harmon reached the diner. The front door was locked. He kicked it in. The place was empty, tables overturned, chairs scattered. "Eleanor," his voice echoed off the walls. "I know you're here. Come out and face me." No response. He pulled out a pistol, started walking toward the back. "You think you've won? You think you can destroy everything I've built and just walk away?" He kicked open the office door. Empty. The kitchen, empty. The storage room, empty. Then he heard it. A voice. Soft, calm. "I'm right here, Mr. Harmon." He spun around. Eleanor stood in the doorway, alone, unarmed. "You should have run, old woman." "I'm done running. I've been done for a long time." He raised the pistol, aimed at her heart. "Any last words?" Eleanor didn't flinch, didn't beg, just looked at this broken man with something that might have been pity. "I forgive you." Vince froze. "What? I forgive you for hitting me, for threatening me, for all of it." "You forgive me?" He laughed, high and wild and unstable. "I'm about to kill you and you forgive me." "Forgiveness isn't about you, Mr. Harmon. It's about me. I won't die with hate in my heart. I won't give you that power." "You're insane." "No, I'm free." She took a step toward him. "You've spent your whole life taking from people, hurting people. And where has it gotten you standing in a diner at midnight pointing a gun at a grandmother? Is this really how you want your story to end?" The gun trembled in his hand. "Shut up. You could have been different. You could have built something real, something that mattered. Instead, you chose fear. You chose cruelty. And now you're alone." I said, shut up. Your parents, your friends, your partners, everyone who ever cared about you. Where are they now? Where are they, Vince? His face crumpled. "They're gone," Eleanor said softly. "All of them. Because you pushed them away. Because you thought power was more important than love. You don't know anything about me. I know that nobody drove through the night to stand beside you. Nobody risked their life to protect you. Because you never gave anyone a reason to." Vince's hand was shaking violently now, tears streaming down his face. It's not too late." Eleanor reached out slowly, gently. "You can still choose differently. You can still be someone worth saving." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Vince Harmon dropped the gun. It clattered to the floor. He fell to his knees beside it, and he wept. 20 minutes later, the police arrived. State troopers, FBI, a dozen agencies responding to anonymous tips about corruption assault and attempted murder. They found Vince Harmon sitting on the floor of Sunrise Diner, handcuffed, broken, confessing to everything. They found his men scattered across Main Street, restrained by bikers who hadn't thrown a single unnecessary punch. And they found Eleanor Dawson sitting at her usual table drinking coffee like it was just another Tuesday morning. Jackson rushed in the moment he saw the police cars. "Ma, are you—" "I'm fine, sweetheart." He had a gun, Rosie said he had a gun. He did. And you just talked to him, Eleanor smiled. Sometimes that's all people need. Someone to really talk to them, to see them. Jackson stared at his mother, this woman he thought he knew, this woman who kept surprising him. You're unbelievable. I'm tired is what I am. She stood up slowly. Help me close up the diner. We've got a long day tomorrow. Outside, bikers were shaking hands with state troopers, giving statements, laughing with relief. The battle was over, but something bigger had just begun. At 3 a.m., as the last police cars pulled away, Bones approached Jackson. Got word from Phoenix. The files are in the right hands. FBI, state, AG, 3 different news networks. How bad is it? For Harmon career ending, prison insuring, life-destroying bond. Good. Bones was quiet for a moment. You know, I've been writing for 40 years, seen a lot of things, done a lot of things. And I've never seen anything like tonight. Your mother alone with a gun to her head, and he shook his head. She forgave him. Just like that. That's who she is. That's who she raised you to be. Bones put a hand on Jackson's shoulder. You ran away because you thought you weren't worthy of her. But brother, you are her. The same strength, the same heart. You just forgot for a while. Jackson felt tears burning in his eyes. I've got a lot to make up for. Then start making it up, tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Bones smiled. Tomorrow we celebrate, and then we rebuild. That's what family does. Jackson looked back at the diner, at his mother silhouetted in the window. She waved, he waved back. And for the first time in 7 years, Jackson Dawson knew exactly where he belonged. The first rays of sunlight hit Dusty Creek like a blessing. Eleanor hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. She sat at the counter of her diner, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, watching the bikers outside slowly stir awake. They'd won. Against all odds, against a man with unlimited resources and zero conscience, they'd won. So why did she feel so empty? Jackson found her there at 6 a.m. He'd been up all night too, helping coordinate with police, giving statements, making sure every biker who'd risked their life had a warm meal and a place to rest. You should sleep, Ma. So should you. He sat beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. What happens now? Eleanor finally asked. Harmon's done. The FBI took custody this morning. Between the assault charges, the corruption evidence, and the attempted murder, he's looking at 20 years minimum. That's not what I meant. Jackson looked at her. Really looked. I know. Eleanor set down her coffee. You came back to help me, to save me. And you did. She paused. But what happens when there's nothing left to save? When the crisis is over, do you disappear again? The question hung in the air like smoke. Ma, because I can't do it again, Jackson. I can't watch you ride away and spend another 7 years wondering if you're alive or dead. I'm 79 years old. I don't have 7 more years to waste on waiting. Jackson's throat tightened. I'm not leaving. You said that before, the night your father died. You said you'd never leave me alone. I know. And then Tommy happened, and you were gone before I could even say goodbye. Tears were streaming down her face now. Not angry tears, tired ones. I love you, Jackson. I've never stopped loving you. But I need more than love this time. I need you to be here. Really here. Not just when things are falling apart. Jackson took his mother's hands. They were small, fragile. The hands that had held him when he cried as a child. The hands that had waved goodbye when he rode off to join the club. The hands that had written letters he never answered. I'm staying, Ma, not because of Harmon, not because of the diner, because I finally understand what I lost when I left. What's that? Everything that matters. Eleanor searched his face, looking for the lie, looking for the escape route he was already planning. She didn't find one. You mean it? I mean it. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending that being alone is the same as being strong. He pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, Ma, for all of it. For every day I wasn't here. For every birthday I missed. For every Christmas you spent alone. Eleanor held her son like he might disappear if she let go. I forgive you, baby. I forgave you the moment you left. I just needed you to forgive yourself. They stayed like that until the sun was fully up. Mother and son finally together, finally whole. The news vans arrived at 8 a.m., 3 local stations, 2 national networks, a documentary crew from Los Angeles that had somehow gotten wind of the story. Eleanor refused every interview. "I'm not interested in being famous," she told the persistent reporter from CNN. "I just want to run my diner." "But Mrs. Dawson, your story is inspiring millions of people. The video has over 50 million views. You're a symbol of—" "I'm not a symbol. I'm a tired old woman who makes good pancakes." She pointed toward the door. "Now either order something or leave. I've got customers to serve." The reporter ordered pancakes. They were the best she'd ever had. Jackson handled the media as best he could. Short statements, no details, constant redirects to Eleanor's desire for privacy. But he couldn't stop the story from spreading. By noon, the Angel of Dusty Creek was trending worldwide. Eleanor Dawson's face was on every news channel. Her story was being shared in 12 languages. And people started showing up. Not reporters, not tourists. People who'd been hurt. People who'd lost hope. People who'd seen the video and driven hundreds of miles just to meet the woman who refused to break. A mother from Flagstaff whose son had been killed by a drunk driver. She just wanted to shake Eleanor's hand. A veteran from Phoenix who'd lost his home to a corrupt developer. He wanted to thank her for fighting back. A teenager from California who'd been bullied so badly she'd considered ending her life. She wanted to tell Eleanor that watching her stand up had given her courage to keep going. One by one they came, and one by one Eleanor welcomed them. She didn't have answers, didn't have advice. She just listened, made coffee, sometimes held their hands while they cried. Jackson watched from behind the counter, amazed. "How does she do it?" he asked Rosie. "After everything she's been through, how does she have anything else to give?" Rosie smiled. "That's not how giving works. The more you give, the more you have. At least that's what she taught me." "She taught you that?" "She teaches everyone who pays attention." By 3 p.m., Bones found Jackson sitting alone on the diner's back steps. "You okay, brother?" "I don't know." Jackson stared at the ruins of the shed. "I keep thinking about all the time I wasted, all the years I could have been here. Can't change the past." "I know, but I can't stop thinking about it either." Bones sat beside him, pulled out 2 cigars, lit one, handed the other to Jackson. "You know what Tommy told me the week before he died?" Jackson's whole body tensed. "Don't." "He told me you were the best man he'd ever known. Said riding with you made him feel like he could do anything, be anyone." "Bones, he worshipped you, Reaper, not because you were perfect, because you weren't, because you made mistakes and owned them, because you treated him like a man when everyone else still saw a kid." Jackson's hands were shaking. "He died because of me, Ty. He died because a drunk driver ran a red light. That's not the same thing. I should have what predicted the future stop. Time, you're a good brother, but you're not God." Jackson said nothing. The cigar burned untouched between his fingers. "Tommy's mother," Bones said quietly. "She's still in Flagstaff, still waiting to talk to you." "I can't." "You can, and you will." Bones stood up. "Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Because that woman deserves to hear about her son from the man who knew him best." "What if she hates me?" "Then at least you'll know, and you can stop hating yourself for something that might not even be real." Bones walked away, leaving Jackson alone with his ghosts. At 6 p.m., Sheriff Dale Combs walked into Sunrise Diner. The room went quiet. He stood just inside the door they had in his hands, looking like a man facing a firing squad. "I know I'm probably not welcome here," he said to the room, "but I needed to say something." Eleanor stepped forward. "Go ahead, Dale." Combs took a deep breath. "I've been the sheriff of this town for 12 years. In that time, I've taken bribes, looked the other way. Let men like Vince Harmon do whatever they wanted, because it was easier than fighting back." His voice cracked. "I told myself it was just the way things were, that one man couldn't change a broken system. But that was a lie. The truth is, I was scared. Scared of losing my job, scared of losing my pension, scared of being alone." He looked at Eleanor. "You weren't scared. You had every reason to be, but you stood your ground anyway. And you showed me what courage actually looks like." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his badge. I'm resigning, effective immediately. I've already talked to the state police, told them everything I know about every dirty deal I've ever been part of. Dale, Eleanor started, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you changed something in me. Something I thought was dead a long time ago. He set the badge on the counter. This town deserves better than what I gave it. Maybe now it'll get the chance to find it. He turned to leave. Dale, he stopped. Eleanor walked over and picked up the badge, held it for a moment, then pressed it back into his hands. Quitting is easy. Staying and making things right is hard. She closed his fingers around the metal. This town doesn't need you to disappear. It needs you to become the man your father was. I don't know if I can. Then figure it out, day by day, choice by choice. She smiled. That's what the rest of us do. Combs stared at the badge in his hands, at this woman who had every right to hate him and chose not to. Why? His voice was barely a whisper. Why are you being kind to me after everything I let happen to you? Because hate is a prison, Dale, and I've been free too long to go back now. The room was silent. Then Grizz stood up from his booth, walked over, extended his hand. We got off on the wrong foot, Sheriff. How about we start over? Combs looked at the hand, at the tattoos, at the Hells Angels patch, and he shook it. One by one, the bikers in the room stood. Some nodded, some offered their own hands. None of them spoke, but the message was clear. Everyone deserves a second chance, even the ones who don't think they do. By 9 p.m., most of the bikers had left. They had jobs to return to, families waiting, lives that had been put on hold for a stranger's mother. But they didn't leave empty-handed. Each one stopped to say goodbye to Eleanor. Some hugged her, some kissed her cheek, some just stood there, unable to find words for what they felt. Grizz was one of the last to go. Mrs. Dawson, it's been an honor. The honor's mine, Grizz. You drove 8 hours for someone you'd never met. That's what family does. We're not family. We are now, he smiled. Hell's Angels take care of their own, and whether you like it or not, you're one of us now. Eleanor laughed. I don't think I'd look good in leather. You'd look great in leather, but that's not what makes you an angel. He tapped his chest. It's what's in here, and lady, you've got more heart than any rider I've ever known. He hugged her one last time. If you ever need anything at all, you call. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. on Christmas. You call and we'll come. I believe you. Good, because I mean it. He walked out to his bike, threw a leg over, started the engine, and then he was gone. Just another rumble fading into the desert night. Bones was the last biker standing in Dusty Creek. He found Jackson on the roof of the diner watching the stars. Mind if I join you? Since when do you ask permission? Bones climbed up, sat beside his brother. Hell of a week. That's one word for it. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from decades of shared history. What are you going to do now? Bones finally asked. Stay. Help Ma run the diner. Figure out who I am without the road. And the club, Jackson was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I took off my patch 7 years ago. I don't know if I can put it back on. Nobody's asking you to. Bones pulled out the pack of cigars again. But you should know you never stopped being our brother. The patch is just leather. What matters is what's underneath. I let you all down. You let yourself down. That's different. Bones lit his cigar. The club understood why you left. We didn't like it, but we understood. Losing Tommy broke something in you. We all saw it. I should have handled it better. Probably, but you're handling it now. That's what counts. Jackson took the offered cigar this time. Let Bones light it. Can I ask you something? Anything. Tommy's mother. What's she like? Bones exhaled slowly. Strong, steady, angry sometimes, but mostly just, I am waiting. Waiting for someone to tell her that her son mattered, that his life meant something. How do I do that? You show up, you tell her the truth, you let her feel whatever she needs to feel. Bones looked at him. And then you carry that with you, not as punishment, as purpose. Purpose. Tommy's gone. Nothing changes that. But the way you live your life from now on, that's his legacy. You honor him by being the man he believed you could be. Jackson felt tears burning in his eyes. Didn't bother hiding them. I miss him, Bones. Every damn day. I know, brother. I know. They sat together until the cigars burned down to nothing. Two old friends, two broken men, finding their way back to something that looked like peace. The next morning, Eleanor woke to find Jackson already in the kitchen. He was cooking. Badly. What on earth are you doing? Making breakfast. He held up something that might have been an omelet. I wanted to surprise you. You succeeded. That's the most terrifying egg I've ever seen. It's not that bad. Sweetheart, I've been cooking for 60 years. That egg is a crime against nature. Jackson laughed, actually laughed. The sound was rusty from disuse, but it was real. Okay, fine, you cook. I'll supervise. You'll stay out of my way, is what you'll do. Eleanor took over the kitchen. Within minutes, the smell of proper bacon and eggs filled the air. Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. She didn't turn around, just kept cooking. That's what mothers do, baby. We never give up, even when we should, even when it hurts, even when our foolish sons run away and don't call for 7 years. I'm sorry. I know you are, and I forgive you. But Jackson, now she turned, if you ever do that to me again, I will hunt you down myself, and I won't be as gentle as Vince Harmon. Despite everything, Jackson smiled. Yes, ma'am. Good. Now set the table. Rosie and Maya will be here soon. Rosie arrived at 7 a.m. with Maya bouncing on her hip. The little girl had taken to Jackson immediately. Something about his quiet strength reminded her of the father she'd never known. Uncle Jack. She launched herself at him the moment she was through the door. Jackson caught her easily. Hey, Munchkin, what's the word? Pancakes. Grandma Ellie promised pancakes. Did she now, with chocolate chips? That sounds like a bribe. What's a bribe? Something grown-ups do when they want kids to behave. Maya thought about this. Is it working? Probably. Rosie watched them with a soft smile. She's been talking about you all week. Uncle Jack this, Uncle Jack that. You've got yourself a phone. She's got good taste. She's the 4. She also thinks the mailman is a superhero. Maybe he is, you don't know. Eleanor emerged from the kitchen with a stack of pancakes. All right, enough chattering. Breakfast is ready. They sat together at the big table in the corner. Eleanor, Jackson, Rosie, Maya. The closest thing to a family any of them had. And for the first time and longer than any of them could remember, the diner felt like home. At noon, a car pulled up outside that nobody recognized. Jackson tensed immediately. Old habits, but when the door opened, it wasn't a threat. It was a woman. Mid-50s, gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, eyes that had seen too much pain. She stood outside the diner for a long moment, just staring at the door. Then she walked in. Eleanor looked up from the counter. Can I help you? The woman's eyes scanned the room, found Jackson. You're Reaper. Jackson's blood went cold. Who's asking? My name is Margaret Chen. Her voice broke. I'm Tommy's mother. The world stopped. Jackson couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at this woman he'd spent 7 years running from. I came to... Margaret swallowed hard. I came to talk to you about my son. Eleanor stepped forward. Why don't you sit down, dear? I'll get you some coffee. Thank you. Margaret's legs were shaking as she lowered herself into a booth. I'm sorry to just show up like this. I saw the news coverage, recognized the town, recognized... She looked at Jackson. Him. Jackson still hadn't moved. Eleanor touched his arm. Jackson, go talk to her. I can't. You can, and you will. Her voice was gentle but firm. This woman lost her son. The least you can do is listen to her. Every step felt like walking through concrete. Jackson slid into the booth across from Margaret Chen, the woman whose son had died under his watch, the woman whose face had haunted his nightmares for 7 years. I don't know what to say. His voice was barely audible. Then let me start. Margaret's hands were trembling around her coffee cup. When Tommy died, I wanted someone to blame. I needed someone to blame, and you were the easiest target. You had every right. No, I didn't. She cut him off. I spent 5 years hating you. 5 years imagining what I would say if I ever found you. How I would scream at you, hit you, make you feel even a fraction of the pain I felt. Tears were streaming down her face now. But then I started going through Tommy's things, reading his journals, his letters. She pulled a worn envelope from her purse. He wrote about you constantly, about how much he respected you, how you pushed him to be better, how you treated him like a man when everyone else still saw a boy. She slid the envelope across the table. He wrote this the week before he died. I found it in his jacket pocket. It's addressed to you. Jackson's hands were shaking so badly he could barely pick up the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, Tommy's handwriting, cramped and messy like always. Dear Reaper, I know this is weird writing a letter to someone I see every day, but there are things I want to say that I can't say out loud. Guy stuff, I guess. You've been more of a father to me than my actual father ever was. You taught me how to ride, how to fix an engine, how to be a man who keeps his word. You never treated me like a kid, even when I acted like one. I know I'm not the best rider in the club. I know I make mistakes. But every time I fall, you're there to pick me up. Every time I doubt myself, you remind me why I started. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll be a full patch member someday. Maybe I'll start my own family. But whatever happens, I want you to know something. You saved my life, not from a bullet or a crash. You saved me from becoming the kind of man my father was. Angry, bitter, alone. Because of you, I know what loyalty means, what brotherhood means, what it means to be part of something bigger than yourself. So thank you, Reaper, for everything, for believing in me when nobody else did. I'll make you proud someday. I promise. Your brother, Tommy. Jackson couldn't see the words anymore. Tears were flooding his vision. He never got to give it to you. Margaret's voice was quiet. I found it in his pocket after the accident. I've been carrying it ever since, waiting for the right moment. I don't deserve this. Maybe not, but Tommy wanted you to have it. She reached across and touched his hand. My son loved you, Jackson. He loved you like a father, and I spent years hating the man he loved most in the world. She took a shaky breath. I'm not here to blame you. Not anymore. I'm here to tell you that Tommy's death wasn't your fault, and I'm here to ask you to stop punishing yourself for something you couldn't have prevented. Jackson looked up and appointed her, this woman who had lost everything, this woman who had every right to hate him. How do you do it? His voice was raw. How do you forgive? I don't know if I have, not completely. Margaret wiped her eyes. But I know that holding on to anger was destroying me, and I know that Tommy wouldn't have wanted that. She squeezed his hand. You carry my son in your heart. I can see it in your eyes. That's not a burden, Jackson. That's a gift. He lives on through you, through the choices you make, through the man you become. I don't know how to be that man. Then figure it out. Day by day, choice by choice. She smiled sadly. That's what Tommy would have wanted. That's what I want. Jackson broke. 7 years of grief, 7 years of guilt, 7 years of running from a pain he thought would kill him. It all came pouring out, and Margaret Chen held the hand of the man who couldn't save her son and let him cry. Later that afternoon, Jackson walked to the edge of town. There was a small hill there, overlooking the desert, the kind of place where you could see forever. He sat down, pulled out Tommy's letter, read it again. Then he started talking. Hey kid, it's been a while. The wind was his only answer. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry for every day I spent hiding instead of honoring your memory. He looked at the horizon. Your mom came to see me today. She gave me your letter. And his voice broke. She forgave me. I don't know why. I don't know how. But she did. He wiped his eyes. I'm going to stay here, Tommy, in this town, with my mother. I'm going to try to be the man you wrote about, the man you believed I could be. He folded the letter carefully, placed it over his heart. I'll make you proud, kid. I promise. The wind picked up, swirling dust around him like an embrace. And for just a moment, Jackson could have sworn he heard laughter, bright and young and full of life. Tommy's laughter. He smiled. Ride safe, brother, until we meet again. When Jackson returned to the diner, Eleanor was waiting for him. How are you feeling? Different? Better maybe. I don't know. You talked to Margaret. For 3 hours. She told me about Tommy's childhood, his dreams, the man he was becoming. Jackson paused. She forgave me, Ma, even after everything. That's what grace looks like, sweetheart. It doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to. I don't deserve it. None of us deserve it. That's the point. Eleanor took his hand. But we accept it anyway, and we try to be worthy of it. Jackson looked at his mother, at this woman who had waited 7 years for a son who might never come home. I love you, Ma. I love you too, baby. Always have. Always will. I know. He squeezed her hand, and I'm finally starting to believe it. That night, Jackson made a phone call. Bones picked up on the second ring. Reaper, everything okay? More than okay. Jackson took a deep breath. I talked to Margaret Chen today. Silence on the other end. And she forgave me, gave me a letter Tommy wrote before he died. Damn. Bones's voice was thick. How are you holding up? I'm okay, really okay for the first time in years. Good, that's good, brother. I'm staying here, Bones, in Dusty Creek, helping my mother with the diner. I figured as much. But I want you to know you're always welcome. Anytime, any reason. This is your home too. Bones was quiet for a long moment. You know, I've ridden with a lot of men over the years. Some good, some bad. Some who'd stab you in the back the moment things got hard. And you're the best of them, Reaper. Not because you're perfect, because you're not afraid to be broken. Jackson felt tears burning again. Thanks, Bones. Don't thank me. Just keep being who you are. That's thanks enough. The call ended. Jackson stood outside the diner looking up at the stars. He thought about Tommy, about Margaret, about his mother, about all the people he'd hurt and all the people who'd forgiven him anyway. And he made a decision. Tomorrow he would start over, not as Reaper, not as the man who ran away, as Jackson Dawson, son, brother, friend, a man worthy of the love he'd been given, a man worthy of Tommy's faith, a man who would never run again. 6 months had passed since the night Vince Harmon fell. Dusty Creek was different now. Not just the buildings or the streets, but the people. They walked taller, smiled more, looked each other in the eye instead of hurrying past with heads down. And at the center of it all stood Sunrise Diner, busier than it had ever been. Eleanor poured coffee for the morning rush, moving between tables with the ease of someone who'd done this for half a century. But there was something new in her step, a lightness that hadn't been there before. Jackson watched her from behind the counter. You're staring again. Just making sure you're not overdoing it. I've been overdoing it for 45 years. I'm not stopping now. The doctor said, the doctor can mind his own business. Eleanor refilled Henry Castellanos' cup without breaking stride. I'll rest when I'm dead. That's what I'm afraid of. She paused, looked at her son, really looked. Jackson, I appreciate your concern, truly. But this diner is my life. It's what keeps me going. If you take that away from me, I might as well dig my own grave. I'm not trying to take anything away. Then stop hovering. She smiled to soften the words. I've got good years left in me. Let me use them. Jackson raised his hands in surrender. Yes, ma'am. Good, now go check on Rosie. She's been in the back for 20 minutes. Jackson found Rosie in the storage room sitting on a crate of napkins crying. Hey, what's wrong? She looked up quickly, wiping her eyes. Nothing. I'm fine. You're crying in a storage room. That's not fine. It's stupid. Tell me anyway. Rosie took a shaky breath. Maya's school called. They're having a father-daughter dance next month. She came home asking where her daddy was, why she doesn't have one like the other kids. Jackson's chest tightened. What did you tell her? The truth. That her father wasn't ready to be a dad, that he left before she was born, that some people just can't stay. How'd she take it? She asked if it was her fault. The words hit Jackson like a physical blow. She's 4 years old, Sam. 4, and she already thinks she's not good enough to be loved. Rosie was crying again, hard, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Jackson sat beside her, didn't speak, just waited. I'm so scared of messing her up, Rosie finally said, of making her feel the way I felt growing up. My dad left when I was 3. My mom worked 2 jobs and was never home. I spent my whole childhood feeling like I wasn't worth staying for. Rosie, I swore I'd be different. I swore my daughter would never feel that way. But how can I give her something I never had? How can I teach her she's worthy of love when I don't even believe it about myself? Jackson was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you something? She nodded. I spent 7 years running from my mother, 7 years convinced I wasn't worth her love, that my mistakes made me unforgivable. That's different. Is it I felt exactly what Maya feels. Like I wasn't enough, like something was wrong with me, like the people who left did so because I deserved to be abandoned. He turned to face her. But I was wrong. The people who leave, they're not leaving because of us. They're leaving because of them, their fear, their weakness, their inability to face what scares them. I know that in my head, but my hearts are stupid. Jackson's voice was gentle. They believe the worst about us, even when it's not true. That's why we need people around us who remind us of the truth. What truth? That Maya is the luckiest girl in the world, because she has you. A mother who works herself to the bone to give her a good life, who cries in storage rooms because she cares so damn much. Rosie looked at him, tears still streaming. You really believe that? I know it because I've seen it. He stood up, offered his hand. Now come on, dry your eyes. We've got a diner to run. Rosie took his hand, squeezed it. Thank you, Jackson. Don't thank me, thank my mother. She's the one who taught me that love shows up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That afternoon, Jackson made a decision. He found Rosie during her break. That father-daughter dance. When is it? 3 weeks. Why do we? I'd like to take Maya, if that's okay with you. Rosie stared at him. You want to? What? Take her to the dance, be her stand-in dad for the night. Show her that men can show up when it matters. Jackson, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. He paused. That little girl looks at me like I'm some kind of hero. The least I can do is try to live up to it. Rosie's eyes filled with tears again, but these were different and she's going to lose her mind. Is that a yes? That's a hell yes. She threw her arms around him. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. I haven't danced since 1987. I might step on her feet. She won't care. Trust me. That evening, Jackson told Eleanor about his plan. She stopped washing dishes mid-scrub. You're taking Maya to a dance. Father-daughter dance? Yes. You, Jackson, I don't dance Dawson, the man who refused to dance at his own prom. Times change. Eleanor set down the dish. Walked over to her son, studied his face like she was seeing him for the first time. Who are you and what have you done with my son, Dumars? Ma. 7 years ago, you couldn't even say hello to a child without panicking. Now you're volunteering to be someone's stand-in father. It's just a dance. No, it's not. Her eyes were wet. It's not just a dance and you know it. That little girl doesn't have a father, and you're stepping up to fill that gap, even if it's just for one night. She deserves better than what she got. So did you. Eleanor touched his face. And look at the man you've become anyway. Jackson couldn't speak. The lump in his throat was too large. Your father would be so proud of you, Eleanor whispered. So incredibly proud. I wish he was here. He is baby. He's in every good thing you do, every kind word, every choice to stay instead of run. She smiled. That's what legacy is. It's not about gravestones or inheritances. It's about the pieces of ourselves we leave in the people we love. 2 weeks later, the town received unexpected news. Sheriff Dale Combs called a press conference. Jackson watched from the diner with Eleanor and Rosie. Good afternoon. I'm here to announce that after extensive investigation, all charges against Phoenix Luxury Development have been substantiated. Vincent Harmon has pled guilty to 37 counts, including assault, bribery, extortion, and attempted murder. The diner erupted in cheers. But that's not why I called this conference. Combs took a deep breath. I'm also announcing my candidacy for re-election as sheriff of Dusty Creek. Murmurs from the crowd. I know some of you are surprised. 6 months ago, I was ready to turn in my badge. I'd spent years being exactly the kind of lawman this town didn't need. Corrupt, compromised, complicit. He looked directly at the camera. But someone taught me that quitting is easy. Staying and making things right is hard. I've spent the last 6 months trying to be the man my father was. The man this town deserves, and I'm asking for the chance to keep trying. His voice cracked. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes I'll spend the rest of my life regretting. But I believe in second chances. I believe in redemption. And I believe that with your support, we can make Dusty Creek the town it was always meant to be. He stepped back from the microphone. The crowd was silent. Then slowly someone started clapping. Then another person, then another. Within seconds, the entire press conference had become a standing ovation. Eleanor wiped her eyes. He did it. He really did. Jackson shook his head in disbelief. 6 months ago, I wanted to put that man through a wall. Now I'm rooting for him. That's how change works, baby. One step at a time, one choice at a time. You taught him that you know the stuff about quitting being easy. I just told him what your father told me. Eleanor smiled. Good advice has a way of getting passed around. The night of the father-daughter dance arrived faster than anyone expected. Jackson stood in front of Eleanor's bathroom mirror, struggling with a tie he hadn't worn in 20 years. You look like you're preparing for battle, Eleanor said from the doorway. I feel like I'm preparing for battle. It's a school gymnasium. There will be punch and cookies and little girls in fancy dresses. You'll survive. What if I mess up? You will, that's guaranteed. She walked over and fixed his tie properly. But Maya won't remember your mistakes. She'll remember that you showed up, that you cared enough to be there. How do you know? Because that's what I remember about your father, not the perfect moments, the imperfect ones where he tried anyway. The doorbell rang. Jackson froze. That's them. Ma, I can't. Yes, you can. Now go answer the door. He walked downstairs on legs that felt like jelly, opened the door, and forgot how to breathe. Maya stood on the porch in a pink dress covered in sparkles. Her hair was braided with ribbons. She clutched a small purse like it contained all her worldly treasures. Uncle Jack. She bounced with excitement. Do you like my dress? Mommy got it special. You look, he had to clear his throat. You look beautiful, Munchkin. You look fancy too. She grabbed his hand. Come on, we're gonna be late. Rosie stood behind her daughter, camera ready. Can I get a picture first? Jackson knelt beside Maya, put his arm around her. Say cheese, cheese. The flash went off. Rosie looked at the photo, started crying. Oh, for Pete's sake. She laughed through her tears. I promised myself I wouldn't do this. Mommy's being silly, Maya announced. She's been crying all day. Happy tears, baby. Happy tears. The drive to the school was filled with Maya's chatter. She told Jackson about her best friend Sophie, about her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, about the goldfish in the classroom that she was convinced was actually a secret agent. Jackson listened to every word. Uncle Jack. Yeah, Munchkin. Are you my daddy now? The question hit him like a truck. He pulled the car over, turned to face her. Maya, I'm not your daddy. Her face fell. But, he continued quickly, I'm something maybe even better. I'm your friend, someone who cares about you very much and will always be there when you need me. Promise, cross my heart. She considered this. Sophie's daddy travels a lot for work. She never sees him. So maybe having a friend who's always there is better. Maybe it is. Okay. She nodded decisively. You can be my special friend, but only if you promise to never leave. I promise, she held out her pinky. Pinky swear. Jackson hooked his massive pinky around her tiny one. Pinky swear. Maya grinned. Now can we go? I really want to dance. The gymnasium was chaos. Dozens of little girls in their best dresses dragging their fathers toward the dance floor. Balloons everywhere. A disco ball spinning overhead. Maya pulled Jackson into the crowd without hesitation. Come on. The music's starting. The DJ played something upbeat. Maya started bouncing. Jackson tried to follow. You're not very good at this, she observed. I know. That's okay. I'll teach you. For the next hour, a 4-year-old girl taught a 52-year-old former biker how to dance. They did the chicken dance, the Macarena, something Maya called the wiggly worm that Jackson was pretty sure she made up on the spot. He stepped on her feet. She stepped on his. They both laughed until they couldn't breathe. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Jackson felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Pure, uncomplicated joy. During a slow song, Maya insisted on standing on his feet while they swayed. Uncle Jack, yeah, I'm glad you came back. To Dusty Creek, I mean. Me too, Munchkin. Mommy says you were gone for a long time, that you were sad about something. I was. Are you still Zach? Jackson thought about it, really thought. Sometimes, but less than before. And tonight, I'm not sad at all. Maya hugged his leg. Good, because sad is yucky. You're absolutely right. I'm always right. Ask Mommy. He laughed. I'll take your word for it. When they got home, Maya was asleep before they pulled into the driveway. Jackson carried her inside, laid her gently on her bed, tucked the blankets around her. Thank you. Rosie stood in the doorway watching. I've never seen her that happy. She's easy to make happy. Not usually. She has been asking about her father more and more, wondering why she's different from the other kids. But tonight, Rosie wiped her eyes. Tonight she felt normal, like everyone else with Teheu. She's better than everyone else. I know, but she doesn't, not yet. Jackson kissed Maya's forehead gently. She will. Give her time. He headed for the door, then stopped. Rosie, yeah. I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever Maya needs, whatever you need, I'm here. That's a big promise. I've broken enough promises in my life. Time to start keeping them. 1 year later, the annual Hells Angels Memorial Ride came to Dusty Creek. Bikes lined Main Street as far as the eye could see. Hundreds of them, from chapters across the Southwest and beyond. They came every year now. What had started as a rescue mission had become a tradition. A pilgrimage to the town where an old woman had taught them what courage really meant. Eleanor stood on the diner steps watching the procession. She was 80 now, frailer than before, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. Jackson stood beside her firm, Margaret Chen on her other side, Rosie and Maya completing the family portrait. I still can't believe they come all this way, Eleanor said. You changed their lives, Ma. Changed all our lives. I didn't do anything special. You stood your ground. That's the most special thing in the world. Bones approached Helmet under his arm. Mrs. Dawson, looking beautiful as always. Flattery will get you everywhere, young man. That's what I'm counting on, he grinned. The boys want to know if you're going to give a speech this year. A speech? It's tradition now. You say a few words, we raise a toast, then we ride. Eleanor looked at the sea of leather-clad men waiting for her. These rough, scarred warriors who'd crossed deserts and mountains to honor an old woman who made good pancakes. All right, but keep it short. I've got a diner to run. She walked to the small platform they'd set up in front of the diner. Someone handed her a microphone. The crowd fell silent. I'm not much for speeches, she began. Anyone who knows me knows I prefer action to words. But since you have all come such a long way, I suppose I owe you something. She looked at the faces before her, old and young, scarred and smooth, all of them watching her with something like reverence. A year ago, I was just a tired old woman running a diner in a town that had given up hope. A man came to take what was mine, and I was ready to let him, ready to surrender, ready to die. Her voice strengthened, but then something happened. My son came home, and he didn't come alone. He brought all of you, strangers who had no reason to help me, no reason to risk your lives for someone you'd never met. She paused. People ask me what I learned from that experience, what wisdom I gained. And the truth is, I didn't learn anything new. I just remembered something I'd forgotten. She looked at Jackson. I remembered that love is stronger than fear, that kindness is more powerful than cruelty, that one person standing up can inspire 100 others to do the same. Her eyes swept the crowd. You call yourselves outlaws. Society looks at your leather and your tattoos and your motorcycles and sees danger, sees something to fear. She smiled. But I know what you really are. You're protectors, defenders, angels who ride instead of fly. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Eleanor raised her hand for silence. One more thing. I'm 80 years old. I've outlived my husband, buried friends, and watched this town nearly die twice. I don't know how many more of these rides I'll see. Her voice cracked. But I want you to know that whatever happens, whatever time I have left, I will spend it grateful for every single one of you, for proving that good still exists in this world, for showing my son that family is bigger than blood, for reminding an old woman that life is always worth fighting for. She raised an imaginary glass. To the angels, may your roads be long and your hearts be true. To the angels, the response thundered through the street, and then they rode, hundreds of motorcycles streaming out of Dusty Creek like a river of chrome and thunder. Jackson led them this time, his mother's blessing fresh in his ears. They rode for Tommy, for Frank, for everyone who'd been lost along the way. They rode for Eleanor, for Rosie, for Maya, for every person who'd ever been told they weren't worth fighting for. They rode because that's what angels do. That night, after the last bike had disappeared over the horizon, Jackson found his mother alone in the diner. She was sitting at the booth by the window, the one where Vince Harmon had first threatened her, the one where her life had changed forever. You okay, Ma? Just thinking. About what? About your father, about how much he would have loved today. Jackson sat across from her. He would have been proud of you. He would have been proud of you. She reached across and took his hand. You're everything he hoped you'd become. Kind, strong, present. I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. They sat in comfortable silence, mother and son, together at last. Jackson. Yeah, Ma. I need to tell you something. Something I have been putting off. His stomach dropped. What is it? The doctor called yesterday. The test came back. What test, Mom? What are you talking about? Eleanor squeezed his hand. It's cancer, baby. Pancreatic, stage 4. The world stopped spinning. No, there must be a mistake. There's no mistake. I've known for 3 months. I didn't want to ruin the ride. 3 months, Ma, why didn't you tell me? Because I needed time. Time to make peace with it. Time to figure out how to say goodbye. Jackson couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His mother, his anchor, the woman who'd held everything together. How long? 6 months, maybe less. No, we'll get second opinions. We'll find specialists, Jackson. Her voice was calm, steady. I'm 80 years old. I've lived a full life. A good life. I've seen things I never expected to see. Loved people I never expected to love. Tears were streaming down his face. I'm not ready. Neither am I, but that's not how it works. She touched his cheek. We don't get to choose when we go. We only get to choose how we live until then. Ma, I want to spend my last months right here in this diner, surrounded by the people I love. I want to see Maya grow. Watch Rosie thrive. Watch you become the man I always knew you could be. She smiled through her own tears. That's all I want, Jackson. To be present, to be loved, to be remembered. You will be. I swear to God you will be remembered forever. Then that's enough. That's more than enough. They held each other in the empty diner, mother and son, beginning and end. And in that moment, Jackson understood something his father had tried to teach him decades ago. Death isn't the enemy. Fear is. Living in terror of the end instead of embracing every moment of the journey. His mother had taught him how to live. Now she would teach him how to let go. The next 6 months were the most precious of Jackson's life. Every morning he woke early to have coffee with his mother. They talked about everything. His childhood, her marriage, the dreams they'd had and the ones they'd abandoned. Every afternoon he helped her run the diner, took over more and more responsibilities as she grew weaker, but never pushed her aside, Never made her feel useless. Every evening they sat on the porch and watched the sunset, sometimes in silence, sometimes sharing stories, always together. Maya came by every day after school. She'd climb into Eleanor's lap and tell her about her day, about Sophie and Mrs. Rodriguez and the goldfish that definitely wasn't a secret agent anymore because she'd asked and it hadn't answered. Eleanor lived for those visits, lived for that little girl's laugh. She reminds me of you, Eleanor told Jackson one night, when you were small, before the world got complicated. I don't remember being that happy. You were for a while, she smiled, and you will be again, I promise. How can you promise that? Because I know you, because I raised you, because the same strength that got me through these 80 years is in you too. Rosie became like a daughter to Eleanor in those final months. She spent every spare moment at the diner, cooking, cleaning, just sitting with Eleanor when the pain got bad. Thank you, Eleanor told her one day, for everything, for Maya, for being there for my son when I can't be anymore. Don't talk like that. I have to. Someone needs to look after him when I'm gone. Someone needs to remind him that he's worth loving. Rosie wiped her eyes. We're not yet, but you will be. Eleanor smiled knowingly. I've seen the way you look at each other, the way you lean in when he talks, the way he lights up when you walk into a room. He's still healing. He'll always be healing. That's what life is. But healing is easier when you're not alone. She took Rosie's hand. Promise me you'll take care of him. Promise me you'll give him the family he deserves. Rosie was crying openly now. I promise, yeah. Good. Eleanor closed her eyes. That's all I needed to hear. 3 days before the end, Eleanor asked Jackson for one final thing. Take me for a ride. What? On your motorcycle? I've never been on one, and I'd like to know what all the fuss is about before I go. Ma, you're too weak. The doctors said I'm dying. I'd like to feel alive one more time. Jackson couldn't refuse her. He wrapped her in blankets, secured her behind him on the Harley, made sure she was holding on tight. Ready. I've been ready for 80 years. He started the engine, and they rode. Through Dusty Creek, past the diner, past the house where Jackson grew up, past the cemetery where Frank Dawson was buried. Eleanor held on to her son and felt the wind on her face for the first time, felt the freedom that had called to him all those years, understood finally why he'd needed the road. I get it now, she shouted over the engine. I understand. Understand what? Why you couldn't stay. Why the road called you. This feeling, it's like flying. Yeah, it is. Thank you, baby. Thank you for this. Thank you, Ma, for everything. They rode until the sun set, until the stars came out, until Eleanor's arms grew too weak to hold on. Then Jackson brought her home, laid her in her bed, and held her hand through the night. Eleanor Dawson passed away at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Jackson was beside her. So was Rosie. And Maya, who'd insisted on sleeping in Grandma Ellie's room even though she didn't fully understand why. Eleanor's last words were simple. I love you. All of you. Live well. And then she was gone. The funeral was the biggest Dusty Creek had ever seen. Over 500 people packed the small church. Bikers and businessmen, politicians and pancake lovers. Everyone whose life Eleanor Dawson had touched. Jackson gave the eulogy. He spoke about her strength, her kindness, her absolute refusal to give up on anyone no matter how lost they seemed. My mother used to say that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have aprons. Sometimes they have coffee pots. Sometimes they ride motorcycles. He looked at the crowd. She never thought of herself as special, never wanted recognition or praise. She just wanted to serve, to love, to make people feel seen. His voice broke. I spent 7 years running from this town, running from my mother, running from myself. And she never stopped waiting, never stopped believing I'd come home. He looked at Eleanor's photograph on the altar. I'm home now, Ma. I'm finally home. And I promise on everything I am and everything I'll become that I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of your love. He stepped back. Rest easy, Angel. You've earned it. 2 years later, Sunrise Diner was renamed Eleanor's Place. The new sign read. Below it in smaller letters, Where Angels Eat. Jackson ran it now with Rosie. They'd married 6 months after Eleanor's passing. A small ceremony, just family and a few hundred bikers who'd shown up uninvited. Maya was 6. She still called him Uncle Jack, even though he'd officially adopted on her. She said Daddy felt weird, and he said he didn't care what she called him as long as she called him something. The annual memorial ride had tripled in size. Bikers came from all over the country now, not just to honor Eleanor, but to experience the town she'd saved. Dusty Creek was thriving. New businesses, new families, new hope, all because one old woman refused to break. On the second anniversary of Eleanor's death, Jackson rode to the cemetery alone. He knelt beside her grave, next to Frank's just like she'd wanted. "Hey, Ma, it's me." He placed fresh flowers on the headstone. "Maya lost her first tooth last week. Made me put it under her pillow and pretend to be the tooth fairy. I'm pretty sure she knows it's me, but she plays along anyway." He smiled. "Rosie's pregnant. We just found out. She wanted to wait until today to tell anyone because she said you should be the first to know." His voice cracked. "I miss you every day, every single day. But I'm okay, really okay. You were right about healing, about not running, about love being stronger than fear." He touched the cold stone. "I'm the man you always believed I could be. Not perfect, never perfect, but present, loyal, true." He stood up. "Save a seat for me up there, Ma. But don't expect me too soon. I've got a lot of living left to do." He walked back to his Harley, threw a leg over, started the engine, and rode into the sunset, because that's what angels do. They ride for those who can't. They protect those who have no one. They love with everything they have, even when it hurts. And they never, ever give up. Eleanor Dawson taught the world that an 80-year-old woman with nothing but courage could stand against the powerful and win. Jackson Dawson taught himself that running from pain only makes it grow. And Dusty Creek taught everyone who passed through that home isn't a place. It's the people who refuse to let you fall. In the years that followed, the story spread far beyond Arizona. Books were written, documentaries filmed. Millions of people heard about the widow who faced down a monster and the bikers who answered her call. But the real legacy wasn't in the headlines. It was in the little girl who learned that fathers don't have to be blood. It was in the sheriff who chose redemption over surrender. It was in the biker who came home after 7 years and finally stopped running. It was in every person who heard the story and decided that courage was possible, that kindness could roar, that love was worth fighting for. Eleanor Dawson never wanted to be a hero. She just wanted to serve coffee and watch the sunrise. But sometimes heroes don't choose their destiny. Destiny chooses them. And in a small diner on Route 66, a legend was born. Not of violence or vengeance, of love, of family, of angels who ride instead of fly. And if you ever find yourself in Dusty Creek, Arizona, stop by Eleanor's Place. Order the pancakes. They're still the best in the Southwest. And if you listen closely, you might hear the rumble of engines in the distance. That's just the angels passing through, watching over those who need it most. Because in the end, that's what Eleanor Dawson taught us all. Kindness never does, courage never fades, and true angels never stop riding. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to believe that good still wins. Because sometimes the road to justice starts with one person who refuses to give up. And sometimes, just sometimes, angels wear leather.